Hello, everybody. Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government here. It's Friday, and you think Friday, what's going to be happening in Washington D.C. Well, big news. Jim Jordan, Representative Jim Jordan, who's the House Judiciary Committee chairman, has launched the first volley at Department of Justice today. Just a few minutes ago, Jim Jordan, along with Mike Johnson, Representative Mike Johnson on the Judiciary Committee, co-signed a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland inquiring about this appointment of a special counsel on dealing with the Biden classified documents and why this matters. I'm going to read you some of the letters here in a second, but why this matters is because what the left is saying, and this is kind of an interesting nuance, the left is saying, well, you really can't investigate the Biden having classified documents because there's a special counsel. And so the left looks at the special counsel, and hence, the Justice Department looks at the special counsel as a blanket reprieve for Joe Biden to be protected from House investigation on what happened in terms of this classified documents. And so it's kind of interesting how they view the special counsel as being actually a shield for Joe Biden from accountability. I'm going to read you. I'm going to put it up here on the screen so you can see it. But I think it's really important what they actually sent. And hopefully you can see this. The opening of it just it says we're conducting oversight, meaning the Judiciary Committee cites some reasons. On January 12th, you appointed Robert Hur as special counsel to investigate these matters. The circumstances of this appointment raise fundamental oversight questions that the committee routinely examines. We expect your complete cooperation in our inquiry. And then it goes through and lays out the case. November 2, days before the midterm elections, President Biden personal attorneys reportedly discovered documents, classified documents. Amazing how that happens. So they reportedly discovered it on November 2, somewhat shady. And then you have, crazy as it may seem, but it keeps on going. The classified documents were dated between 2013 and 2016, which suggested they were stored at the Penn Biden Center for years. Subsequently, a second set of classified documents were reportedly found in the Biden family residence in Wilmington, Delaware. It's unclear. I'm reading this because this is really important because it's something that people need to understand about how this investigation and how Jim Jordan's looking at investigating the Biden administration and the Department of Justice in particular. It's unclear when the department first came to learn about the existence of these documents and whether it actively concealed this information for the public on the eve of the 2022 elections. Remember, that's what we were talking about yesterday. It is also unclear what interactions, if any, the department had with President Biden or his representatives about his mishandling of classified materials. The department's actions appear to depart from how it acted in similar circumstances. In fact, on August 8, 2022, despite the publicly available evidence of President Trump's voluntary cooperation, you personally approved the decision to seek a warrant for excessive and unprecedented access to his private residence. On August 15, 2022, committee Republicans wrote to you and FBI Director Christopher Wray requesting documents and information related to the FBI's raid of President Trump's residence. The department and the FBI have failed to sufficiently comply with this request. Our requests remain outstanding. So here's what they're asking for in terms of the Biden raid. All documents and communications referring or relating to the appointment of Robert K. Hur as special counsel, including but not limited to any memorandum regarding his appointment. Why this is important is you discover, was this hastily decided? What were they saying back and forth about why this guy should be appointed? Was the fact that he was Rod Rosenstein, the evil actor in Department of Justice, who was the Deputy Attorney General, the number 2 person in the AG's office under Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions didn't appoint him. He was appointed by the president at the advice of some people who didn't have the president's interest at heart. And Rod Rosenstein was the guy who was kept on signing on FISA on FISA warrants well after everybody knew the Christopher Steele dossier discredited the entirety of the FISA investigation and the entire of the Mueller probe. Rod Rosenstein's the one who never held Mueller accountable in terms of that probe and let it keep going on as a witch hunt, where the entire effort of that Mueller probe was to try to entrap President Trump and the people around him into obstruction of justice charges. They knew from almost day one that there was no Russia collusion, and yet they subjected the country to 2.5 to 3 years of garbage over that. Rod Rosenstein was the heart of darkness who kept that garbage going on. But so all documents, and so if they had been talking about appointing Robert Hur before, November 2, then for a fact that they have the problem, that they knew about this well in advance of November 2. If they started talking about appointing him, it's very interesting the things they said about him in terms of why he was particularly qualified, because he was one of the people who the Inspector General report on all the garbage from the Russia collusion was handling Christopher Steele documents from after he went back to the Department of Justice to work under Rod Rosenstein in early 2017. So 2, the letter continues. All documents and communications referring to or relating to the selection of John R. Lausch to examine matters related to President Biden's mishandling classified documents, including but not limited to any memorandum regarding his selection. Now, remember, before appointing the special counsel, Merrick Garland said, we want the U.S. Attorney in Chicago to take a look at this. And that guy is John R. Lausch, and he was given this task presumably in November. And 2 months later, they got a special counsel. So that's an interest. So he's trying to find out, okay, what was the process here? Because remember, what Jordan is trying to get at is the process they're going to. What are the elements of their decision making? Because if their elements of decision making are, as we would suspect, are political, as we've seen the outcomes of their decisions have been political, but if they have documents that indicate that this is a political decision, that they're political calculations, and those are and they've made the mistake of writing those, that's significant. That's what Jordan's going at. 3, all documents and communications between or among the Department of Justice, FBI, or the Executive Office of the President referring or relating to materials with classified markings found at the Penn Biden Center and the Biden residence in Wilmington, D.C. What did the Biden administration know? How were they coordinating the effort with the White House? And so to what level is this a cover-up? 4, all documents and communications between or among the Department of Justice, the FBI, or attorneys or representatives of President Biden, including but not limited to White House Attorney Richard Sauber, referring or related to material with classified markings found at the Penn Biden Center and the Biden residence in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, remember, one of the things that Biden has claimed was that his personal attorney stumbled upon these documents. And so they turned them over to the Department of Justice because they were just going through the Biden Penn Center, abandoned office of Biden Penn Center, just to see what was there, and oh my goodness, they found classified documents. So that's what we've been told by the Biden administration, by the Department of Justice, as to how we found out about the classified documents. If you believe that, I can sell you a bridge out in Arizona that used to be over the Thames River in London. All documents and communications referring or relating to the physical storage of material with classified markings found at Biden Center and Biden residence in Wilmington. So that's going, they want to know, how was it physically stored? What were the actual circumstances that they found the documents in? Were they, because after all, Joe Biden used my garage was locked defense to say that they were secure. And, counter to what he may believe, I know he did finish like third to last in his law school class, but counter to what he may believe, there isn't a locked garage exception for the classified documents laws in this country. So locked garage, that garage door that you have that's all rickety, that has a little lock on it, locked garage, not an exception in the law to keeping things classified. By the way, President Trump was in a safe, the documents he had, we're almost every single one of them, we're in a safe room that was specifically designated for holding secure documents and classified documents. But let's not quibble. Safe room, locked garage by the Corvette. Yeah, pretty much the same. And then 6, all documents and communications referring or relating to the discovery of material classified markings found at Penn Biden Center and the Biden residence in Wilmington, including the circumstances of how President Biden's personal attorneys came to discover classified material in insecure settings. Please provide this material as soon as possible, but no later than 5 p.m. on January 27, 2023. And then a note reminding them that Judiciary Committee has oversight over them. So they've given them 2 weeks to turn over the information. And it's really not that much information that they're asking for, because this is, if this was a fast breaking thing, there are very few people should have had their eyes on it, and very few people should have been communicating with it. And it should be a relatively small file. But let's be clear. The last one, talking about the attorneys that came upon the classified documents and the circumstances for them coming upon them, I think gets to the whole skepticism that Jim Jordan and the House Republicans on the Judiciary Committee have towards the cover story on this. So what Jordan has done is he's not saying, I'm going to get into discussing whether or not Joe Biden conducted an illegal act. Okay, not going to go into whether he conducted an illegal act by having the classified documents. He did, but that's not what they're going to do. What he did was, they're saying, we're going into process. How did you go about doing this? Because Jim Jordan's job, when he's looking at the weaponization of the FBI, the weaponization of the Department of Justice, he's not going to try to litigate whether or not what a court of law can litigate. This isn't about going after the impeachment of Joe Biden. It's about impeaching the character of Garrett Marlin. And it's about going after the process, the politicization process that exists at the FBI. And so he's asking relatively simple, benign process questions and asking for the documents, which will demonstrate, which he hopes will show that there's a political calculation in how they handle it. Like, oh my God, I can't believe they found this. And what he hasn't asked, by the way, which I think is the next shoe to drop, is the process they went to, all documents related to how they decided to appoint a special counsel for Donald Trump on the classified documents from Mar-a-Lago, because that's the other piece of it. They get this piece, then they compare it, then they get the other piece, and they compare how the two were handled. And that's how you make the impeachable case against Merrick Garland, that he's engaged in political manipulation of the Justice Department based upon who he wants, how they want to put the thumb on the scale in this country. So that's big news. That's the breaking news. If I'm going to say something now, I hope somebody on my staff's listening. I'm hoping that this letter, which can be found on the Justice Department, on the House Committee on Judiciary, on their website, under the heading letters, it's a top letter under that heading, that we'll have a pointer to that on our website so people can check it out, and we'll also tweet that out on our Twitter account, and the Twitter, and follow us on Twitter. It's @LimitGovT, @LimitGovT. I'll put that up right now on my little thing here so you can see it, because that might be interesting for you to do. But if you do that, if you just go and I'm on the wrong one, darn it. If you just do that, you'll be able to find out, what's going on, and you'll be able to read it for yourself, and you can come to your own conclusions. But because what we try to do here is provide you with the facts, provide you with the resources to do your own investigation, so you can speak, so you can know firsthand that I'm not making this stuff up. This is what Jordan's doing. And you can draw your own conclusions as to why he's doing it. I'm giving you instant analysis. This is just breaking of what I see, but you might see something different. And, and adding that to the debate as citizen journalists, adding that to the debate is very, very important. So, but this is big news. And because it's really the first shot fired by this new effort to focus on the weaponization of the Department of Justice. This is the first shot fired in that fight. And so we're going to see how this goes back and forth. But by asking narrow questions with very narrow answers that should be very easy to get. He's not asking for thousands of pages of documents. Narrow questions, narrow answers. This House Judiciary Committee is determined that they are going to build a case. And quite honestly, if the Department of Justice is operating honestly, they shouldn't have any problem with just providing this data. Okay. But I do think it's really important to recognize what I said at the front of this is the reaction by the left on Twitter and other things to this letter. And it just came out, but immediately the left came onto Jordan's Twitter account and said, "Ha ha ha! You can't investigate this because we put a special counsel in, and that blocks you from investigating. So ha ha ha! You can't do anything." And that revealed everything I needed to know as to why the special counsel was actually appointed. The special counsel is a shield. The reason they couldn't roll it into a special counsel already investigating classified documents held by people who were not in office, President Trump, Jack Smith. The reason they didn't roll it into that investigation is because that isn't a shield. That's an aggressive attempt to take down President Trump. This is an attempt to cover for Joe Biden. And by separating them and saying, okay, well, you can't investigate what Joe Biden did because we're investigating it, because we're the law enforcement, that is how you do a cover up in Washington, D.C. while pretending to do your job. So that's the breaking news on this. It's pretty exciting. I did want to share a couple of other things on it. I thought this was our cartoonist, Tony Bronco, came up with a cartoon that we ran this morning on Daily Torch. And I thought that some people, you guys might be interested in seeing it. And this was a cartoon that we did. And I'm going to give you a little insight. Last night, I ended up talking to Tony pretty late, and he was concerned about something on this. He was thinking, we see where it says VP office. He was thinking about changing that to Biden Penn Center, which is the think tank that Joe Biden was at from 2017 to 2020 or 2019. And we decided to keep it VP office because it's very easy for people to conflate this and say, well, he's president and these are classified documents. He has a right to have the classified documents. He's president. But it's not okay. This is about classified documents that he had when he was the former vice president, not the president of the United States, the former vice president. And that's and he had absolutely no right to hold those documents. Now, somebody in the chat said, kind of, I think, tongue in cheek, that maybe his garage by the Corvette is where the federal government was holding their SCIF, so where you could review classified documents. A SCIF is a location, secure location where somebody who has the clearance authority but might not be working in government can go and can look at classified documents for if they're writing a book or they're basically doing those kind of things, so they can just check facts about what happened and they can accurately tell the history of what went on in their administration or in their service in the federal government when it deals with classified stuff. So that's that obviously his garage wasn't a SCIF, and Penn Biden Center wasn't a SCIF. They were basically private entities, and Joe Biden was committing a crime by having those documents there, distinct from Donald Trump, who, as president of the United States, declassified documents and had those documents with him at Mar-a-Lago and had every right to have those documents there. They were declassified, was negotiating with the National Archives on which documents should be put in the National Archives and which ones should be his personal stuff, and available for him to review. And the national archivist, who was a radical anti-Trumper, decided he was going to escalate by calling the FBI and say, "Oh, this guy won't give us all of his documents." And next thing you know, the FBI is raiding Mar-a-Lago, and they must have thought Roger Stone was there, so they could do it at 6 a.m. and try to drag people out in their underwear. But we've seen this enough, where the unequal treatment of the law. Jim Jordan's going after that, and that's one of the things that's most important about this. That's what's exciting about it to me, is we're finally going to get somebody pushing back and saying, if you're going to apply the law unequally, we're going to hold you accountable. So that's that. I want to talk a little bit about Robert Hur, and this isn't, you can't see this, so I'm just going to cut this out. Robert Hur is the guy who's the special counsel for the Biden side of this. Robert Hur is a guy who worked for Rod Rosenstein, who was identified as having been involved in reviewing the Christopher Steele documents and being in communication with Christopher Steele about the document, about his dossier. And you might remember the FBI offered Steele $1 million if they could validate the dossier. So after they couldn't validate it, they offered him $1 million to validate it. And interesting was Robert Hur involved in that. He's been a kind of the right-hand man for Rod Rosenstein throughout his career. And so we're looking at a guy. Oh, by the way, he's also a partner in the same law firm as Christopher Wray, FBI director. So there's a lot of entanglement here, and so the question becomes very clear: who is this guy, and how entrenched is he in the overall abuse of power that has been demonstrated by the Department of Justice? I'm going to go a completely different direction, though, on this right now. And it's a different thought line. I was asked today on the Bill Maher show out in KMED in Medford, Oregon. I'm on there Friday mornings, 9:30 Eastern time every Friday, except for on rare occasions, like if it's Christmas or something. And Bill asked me, what do you think about, this, the special counsel being appointed to go on Biden? Does that make you feel more comfortable about the special counsel system? And the answer was, I never know what we're going to talk about. So it's always fun and interesting. But the answer I came up with was that the challenge I have with this whole thing is, if the intent, as many people believe, if the intent of the special counsel was not to cover up, but instead was to intimidate Joe Biden, to send a shot across the bow for Joe Biden, saying, hey, we can investigate you too. After all, wink, wink, remember, we've held on to the Hunter Biden laptop for 2 years. We can investigate that anytime we want to, because we'll fold a special counsel in around that too and cause a lot of trouble for you and your son. If the intent was to politically intimidate Joe Biden and send a message that Joe Biden really shouldn't run for re-election in 2024, as he plans to do now, if that was the intent, this is an absolute wrong thing to do. The fact that our Department of Justice, we could even suspect that our Department of Justice is attempting to not only knock out Donald Trump from the presidency, commit a coup against Donald Trump when he was president, and take actions to prevent him from being president in 2025 right now, combined with the fact they're taking actions that may be designed to prevent Joe Biden from running for re-election in 2024. is incredibly dangerous. If our Department of Justice is trying to pick the Republican nominee or the Democrat nominee for president in 2024, last time I checked constitutionally, that's not their job. And that should scare the hell out of everybody if that's what's going on. And I think there's at least a 50-50 shot that that's exactly what's going on. So my answer was, no, this doesn't make me feel more comfortable because I have a sneaking suspicion that this is about manipulating the political process. And that's why we have to, this is not a partisan thing. We have to tear that agency down limb by limb to take it out of the political realm, restrict it to what it's supposed to be doing, and put constraints, put them in a straitjacket so they're not able to play politics, not able to take the weaponization out of it and make them be who they were initially intended to be. And it's going to be hard to do. It's going to be hard to do, but we have to do that. And so Jim Jordan's committee on weaponization of the intelligence services is going to be very, very important in that, in trying to coming up with ways to straitjacket that organization. And I'll remind you that if you didn't see it, my interview with Devin Nunes maybe a month ago, I would encourage you to go back into the archives and look at it, because Devin Nunes was very clear. He's the ranking member of House Intelligence Committee, and he was also the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. And he spent a lot of time looking at what was happening in our intelligence agencies and how they were being used against the American people. And he came to the conclusion that with all the other agencies and all the problems in the other agencies, it all begins at justice. And that's the agency. Unless we tear down justice and their ability to engage in this kind of criminal abuse of their intelligence powers against the law, against citizens of the United States, unless we can rip that out by the roots and rein in the Department of Justice and the overreach that they're engaged in, unless we can do that, we can't solve any of this. That was Devin Nunes. That's not me. So Jim Jordan, what he's doing, trust me, it's calculated and it matters. I'm going to share something else with you guys, and it's kind of a fun thing. Well, it's not fun, but it'll give you a sense of how the Democrats are looking at stuff. And it's kind of an interesting view on it. I'm putting up on a email that my wife received from Representative Steny Hoyer. Steny Hoyer I moved to Maryland like 34 years ago. As long as I've lived in Maryland, 34 years, I have never had another representative in Congress than Steny Hoyer. Okay. Steny Hoyer is the lifetime representative of the swamp, of the DC swamp. And as the lifetime representative of the DC swamp, and until this past year, he was the majority leader of the House, or the minority leader or the minority whip of the House. He was always the number 2 person in the Democratic Party for 20, 25 years. And they basically brought in younger generation, and Hoyer stepped aside from his position along with Pelosi. But this is what Hoyer sent about his concerns. Republicans' latest threats to hardworking federal employees. I'm just going to go to the second paragraph. The extreme wing of the Republican Party, including the rules package, we're talking about the rules package that 20 Republicans fought to get and to make it happen. Now, this might have been in the regular rules package, but it certainly wasn't in the Pelosi rules package. Included in the rules package, a revival of the quote unquote Holman rule, a procedural tactic to punish federal agencies and employees by zeroing out their funding and salaries, including the salaries of individual employees. Now, as the representative of the swamp, this is terrible. He's telling everybody, oh, you need to, this is a terrible thing. You need to connect with me so we can fight to stop these bad Republicans from trying to hold the employees and the people of the United States accountable when they don't do their work. Imagine what a concept. But here's why the Holman rule matters, and this is why they're bringing it up. This is why it's first shot out of the box on the rules package by Hoyer is on the Holman rule. If the Department of Justice is unresponsive to the House Judiciary Committee, And they have certain people who are blocking the providing the information, or if the information they find provided shows that there are people who in their emails are showing they're direct political operatives at the Department of Justice. What can happen is Jim Jordan can say, this guy, the career person who is this lawyer, is the one in the general counsel's office of the Department of Justice is blocking a lot of what's going on. They're the problem on this. And we can show that they've been engaging in malfeasance and they've been obstructing Congress. We might try to subpoena that person and they don't show up for the subpoena, saying, well, gee whiz, who's going to actually prosecute me? Department of Justice isn't going to prosecute me. U.S. Attorney's Office isn't going to prosecute me. I mean, I'm not Steve Bannon. I'm one of the good guys here in the Department of Justice, trying to protect the natural state of being where the government controls everything and individuals have no freedom. So it'll be there's a tool now with the Holman Rule to say, you're not doing your job. You're blocking Congress. You're obstructing Congress. We're lowering your pay to zero. And you can put that in an appropriations bill related to the Judiciary Justice Department's appropriations package. And you can say, this person, this person, and this person are employees of the U.S. government, and Congress deems them to be not performing their job sufficiently. And so we're lowering their salaries to $1 a year or $0 or $5 or whatever it is. And you can do that. And the House will vote, and you'll have to make a compelling case why they should have their salaries lowered. And the House can say, no, we're lowering your salary to $0. And then you have to go to the Senate, and the Senate will go, they don't have this rule, so there'll be a big fight. But the senators will have to decide, the Republican senators are going to have to decide, are they going to allow members of the Justice Department to obstruct House subpoenas and to obstruct investigations? And if 41 Republican senators say, we're leaving that in, we're not voting for something unless people are held accountable in the judicial branch, then the appropriations bill passes. It goes off. Eventually, the Democrats have to give in on that because they don't really care that much. And it then gets kicked to the president. And then the president has to decide whether he's going to sign it, or is he going to shut down the government or shut down that agency based upon wanting to make it so 3 employees get paid who are obstructing justice. Well, those are all political choices by the Democrats. But there's actually a mechanism in place to allow for the House to insist that the people who are blocking their subpoenas, the people who are blocking their inquiries, whether it's at the Department of Interior, Department of Justice, Department of Labor, it doesn't matter. People are blocking the inquiries, or people are not performing their duties as they're supposed to, can be singled out and held accountable because of the Holman Rule. Steny Hoyer, the former majority leader, just about 2 weeks ago, one of his first emails out to his constituents was, Holman Rule, it's dangerous. We got to stop this. Folks, when Steny Hoyer says that something's dangerous to the federal bureaucracy, I listen, because that's exactly what we need to do. He is the representative of the federal bureaucracy. He's got a lot of federal bureaucrats that work in his or live in his district. He has a lot of federal contractors that live in his district. It's how he stays elected. And when he starts squealing about the change of a rule, then that tells us that's a rule we need to push, we need to use, and we need to use it to hold federal employees accountable when they don't do their job. Congress can do that. They have the power in the House now because of the Holman Rule. And this is an opportunity to take advantage of that and to actually make it so people who make decisions to obstruct Congress, who make decisions to break the law, or make decisions just not to do their job, can be held accountable, and can be held accountable by Congress on behalf of the taxpayers of the United States. So when we talk about the rules package, as strange as it may seem, all those things we talked about and we're fighting about internally, The thing that Democrats care about is, oh my gosh, you might be able to actually hold federal bureaucrats accountable on a personal level for failing to do their job. What a concept. And on this Friday, with that, it's a hopeful note because Jim Jordan is doing what he's supposed to do. Kevin McCarthy is saying, yeah, go do what you need to do. Kevin McCarthy's announced, on a side note, but it's similar. Kevin McCarthy's announced he's going to push to have all of the video from J6 released, all of it. Now, there's a lot of hours of video, but the Department of Justice has held that video at close hand because people defending January 6th defendants, if they have it, they can show what their people were actually doing, and that it provides a massive defense. And yet the federal judiciary has not allowed them to have access to exculpatory video evidence that those people were allowed into the Capitol by open doors being held open by Capitol police officers. And so exculpatory evidence is important. And the defense, the people who are defendants, the people who are being prosecuted, people being held in jail still without trial 2 years later, those people have not been provided the ability to offer a defense for themselves because they're not being given the evidence that shows that they're innocent. And it's fundamental in our legal system that exculpatory evidence has to be provided. Kevin McCarthy saying, if there's exculpatory evidence in here, let's release all the videos. God bless him. Let's encourage Kevin McCarthy. Let's send him get on Twitter and praise Kevin McCarthy, Speaker McCarthy. Yeah, Speaker McCarthy. Praise him and just encourage him. Release the videos. We have to hold our government accountable. The Justice Department people are prosecuting people without allowing them to be able to have the evidence of their own, of what they actually did, and are being able to selectively choose out of that evidence what they're going to use and what they're going to present without giving it to the defense, without allowing the defense to go through it and make their case and be able to defend their clients. It's wrong. It's been wrong from day one. So Kevin McCarthy, let Speaker McCarthy know. Thank you. Please release those videos. Please release the videos on J6. So lots of things that are hopeful, good things that are happening. In spite of all the whining and complaining, the House Republicans are off to a great start, and they're getting stuff done. They're passing things that matter. And people say, oh, well, the Senate's not going to do this. Well, you know what? When the House passes something and then they go off and the Senate's not going to do it, you know what the House can say? The House can say, well, you need the debt ceiling, which, by the way, on January 19th, the Treasury Department says we're going to hit the debt ceiling. They can maneuver money around until June, sometime middle of June, before we can't pay bills. But but the debt ceiling is supposed to be hit on January 19th, according to Treasury. So when we have a debt ceiling battle, every single thing that the House passes that deals with our fiscal situation can be used and said, the House has voted, we want this. And in negotiations, in terms of passing a debt ceiling, all that stuff can be used in part of those negotiations to try to cut the size and scope of government. So while people say this might not make any difference, it does make a difference because it's a tool. It's something where the House has said, we support this and we want it done. And that empowers the House to fight on the debt ceiling on a variety of issues that the House has decided that they want done. And they can go and use the debt ceiling or debate to get there, to try to get there. So, folks, been a really good couple of weeks here in Washington, D.C. Sanity is being restored. We have people being held accountable. And I strongly suspect that the squealing you are going to hear over the next 2 years will be the pig, the pork, and the squealing pig of the bureaucracy as they get stuck again and again and again and complain about how the American government is under attack by the House of Representatives, and why can't we just trust them? Because quite honestly, folks, the Democrats and many of the bureaucrats have forgotten who they work for. They think they are America, and you are just slaves out there to send taxes in, and they're just wrong, and they're going to be held accountable. So I'm hopeful right now, and I just hope you will be too. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you very much, and I'm going to click off.